Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Veloso Tours webinar on Chile. And we're going to have live reports from our guides in Chile at this very moment. So that's always exciting. My name is Paulo Veloso. I'm the managing director of Veloso Tours. And the content of the webinar today is shown here. We're going to have a little introduction on Veloso Tours and on Chile, our passion for Chile. And then we're going to have live reports from our guides in Santiago de Chile, in Valparaiso, and in Torres del Paine. And we're going to have my colleague Nick taking us on a tour of Chile from north to south. We'll have a report from our guide in Atacama as well. The questions and answers at the end will rely on you sending some questions on chat. Use the feature in Zoom feature on chat, and then as we go along, and then we'll gather those questions and answer them at the end. Berenice will collate them. And also we'll go through some examples of itineraries just so that you can see how to put together all these itineraries. We'll include some mention of the web cruises, which is very important and very interesting and very exciting in Chile. So it's going to be quite a comprehensive content and presentation of Chile. So the Veloso Tours is been organizing trips in Chile for a long, long time, over 20 years. And we've been traveling to Chile even before that. So we know Chile very well. But our element of differentiation, our uniqueness, I would say, is our emphasis on authentic experiences. And essentially that means that we aim to provide an in-depth perspective of local life, people, and customs based on your own interests. And then the guides are aware, we send to the guides your interests, and they can adapt the excursions to fit your interests. And as an example, recently, we had a client who was interested in beekeeping. He was a beekeeper. And so as part of one of the excursions, as it happens in Chile, he went to see a local beekeeper for a certain amount of time, an hour or so. But he was very excited to have that contact with someone, and he came as a surprise. So that was a real important feature of the excursions and the added value that we can provide. In terms of the booking flexibility at the moment, we just wanted to point out that there is travel insurance that covers COVID, and also that will be flexible with payments and with any unexpected developments that may happen. So people can book with confidence that we'll be able to handle whatever it is that comes along as a result of this pandemic, which hopefully is now coming to an end. But we're going to have to live with new normal. So as you can see, you may have to wear masks, and it's probably the only thing that may happen. All restaurants and everything is open, so we expect that life is coming back to normal. I'd like to also mention that from the point of view of operation, that we'd ask you to have in Zoom, in view, there is a feature called speaker view. So if you could have on speaker view so that the screen will change to the speakers, and also that you are with patience with us, because this new technology is fantastic, but we're also pushing it to the limit. So if there are any delays or anything that isn't quite right, then I'm sure we'll be able to fix it. We've done this many times in the past, and just requires a bit of time and technical know-how. Now, in the last year and looking to the future, We have a new brochure for Latin America, which we hope you will have received. And if you have not, then you can contact us. You can download it from the website. You can look at it also on the website page by page. So that's has lots of new pictures, new images, which we have also used on the website. It's one of the things we've been doing is going through our image library. We also developed a feature where you can experiment by downloading itineraries, choosing a departure date, and then downloading itineraries with a day-by-day summary with the exact dates where you would be in each place. And that's very useful. We'll show you an example at the end of this webinar. And this applies to all the destinations that we offer at the moment, which is Latin America, China, and India. Now, Chile is a wonderful destination. It's this long strip along between the Andes and the Pacific. And it more or less, just to visualize it, you could be akin to having a country that would run from northern Norway to the Sahara. So it's an amazing variety of landscapes and everything from glaciers to desert, with a temperate region in the center and fjords. So this is a wonderful destination for holidays. So now we're starting in Santiago, as you'd expect. You'll arrive in Santiago after your flight, and it'd be your first point of contact. So we're going to have our guide there, and Nick is going to take us on a tour of Chile, starting with Santiago. Nick, can you please show us the best Chile has to offer?
Of course. Thank you, Paulo. As Paulo said, we're going to start our tour around Chile with Santiago. This is most likely the point in Chile that you're going to arrive in, because it has the main international airport, and Santiago is the capital of Chile as well, so the most important city. It's in the center of Chile, as you would have seen on the map a moment ago, and this map here as well. So this is in the central temperate climate. It's got quite a Mediterranean climate, so warm springs and autumns and quite hot in the summer. It's at the foot of the Andes. So on a clear day, you can see this incredibly impressive snow-capped mountain chain, effectively just on the edge of the city. It really is right on the foot of the mountain. So it's quite an impressive natural setting. The city itself is a charming, quite sophisticated city, full of arts and history and green spaces. This, for example, is the presidential palace right in the center of the city, known as La Moneda. You have wonderful museums such as this, the Bellas Artes, the Fine Arts Museum, and wonderful green spaces, as I mentioned as well. Here's another perspective on the Fine Arts Museum, and you can see here the wonderful purple blooms of the jacaranda trees, which flower around this time, October, November. Wonderful statuary throughout the parks as well, both classical and modern. More into the city centre, you've got the Mercado Central, which is a very sort of British style, as you can see here, municipal market, not dissimilar to a sort of Victorian style train station, if you like, with lots of wonderful wrought ironworks. Not only is it impressive from the outside, but it's still a completely functioning market inside, where you'll find fresh fish, the catch of the day, throughout, fruit and vegetable stalls, and in the centre of the market there are even cafes and restaurants where you can sit down and have a meal to eat there. It's a very sort of enjoyable place to have the hubbub of the market surrounding you. So quite a lot to do in Santiago. There are some excellent hotels there, wonderful sort of characterful, charming accommodation options like this, the Hotel Le Rêve, which is in one of the more residential parts. You can see wonderful ivy-coloured frontage there with very comfortable, homely accommodation and rooms. Moving outside of the city of Santiago, there are a variety of day trips as well. You can take a day trip out into the wine valleys, for example. Santiago is really surrounded by wine valleys and wine producing regions, of which we'll speak a little bit more shortly. Also, because of its proximity to the mountains, you can travel up on a day trip into the mountains. Wonderful national parks, such as the Cajon del Maipo, where you're really getting up beyond the foothills towards the high mountains with incredible scenery, wonderful walks that you can do there and see mountain lakes and things like this. So for getting out of the city into nature, that's a very good option, even at the start of your trip. But before we move on, we're actually going to hear live from our guide in Santiago, Jose, who's going to show us a little part of the city and what life is like on the street right now. Hello, Jose.
Hello, how are you? Good morning. Good evening in this case. Yeah, I'm Jose, and I'm here in one of the most iconic neighborhoods in Santiago called La Sarria. La Sarria was at the beginning of the 20th century a very upper middle class area, but today has been converted into a very busy place. We have, as you will see, some buildings in here, 3-4 floors more or less. But the first floor, as you can see here, is plenty of very good places for having something to eat, sandwiches, to good food. We have excellent restaurants in here, and they're open every single day in our city. So yeah, this is a very, very beautiful place, very closer to green areas, as they were saying. You see, every day in La Sarria, the street, this one here, we have this fair, which is a sort of a handicraft and antiques fair that people can come here and see what's going on about art, about handicraft. You know, there's some good restaurant in front, and if you look here to the left hand side, we have cultural centers where we have normally expositions and art in general. This area is very closer to some of the most important museums that we have and cultural centers that we have here. As if you walk towards in front of us, you know, you're going to find 1.5 blocks away from here the cultural center named Gabriela Mistral, which
Jose,
has the name
we've
of one of the.
we've lost your video, unfortunately. We can't see.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jesus Christ. Give me just a minute, please.
Hopefully we're going to get Jose's video feed back in a moment. Jose, if you can put the camera horizontally as well so we get a wider panorama of the street.
Can you see me now?
We can see you now, yes.
Okay, so I was saying that very close from here, we have this cultural center that has the name of one of the Nobel Prizes that we have in our country. And she is Gabriela Mistral. And as you can see, there's a lot of activities now. Of course, this is going to be very crowded in the evening time, you know, when the people, they leave their jobs. They come here because it's a good place for having a beer or a good glass of very good wines, you know. And as you can see, it's very calm. Today, luckily, is a very sunny day. Yesterday was very cold, but today, luckily, we have this sun. We're going to walk a little bit from here. You will see in a few minutes that we have many hotels here, first class and others. The one that you can see in front of us to your left-hand side is the Cumbres Hotel, which our company works with it. So it's a very comfortable. And like I said, if our clients need to move on their own, 1.5 blocks from here, there's a subway. The main avenue is closer to here, where we have all kind of buses, and it's very easy to use the subway in our country because all the information has been provided in Spanish and in English. If you look in front of us, you're going to find one of the green areas. That is the Santa Lucia Hill. As they were saying that our country mostly is a hilly country, and the city of Santiago is in the middle of two ranges of mountains. The most important, of course, are the Andes. Every winter time we have snow on it. But within the city we have some hills, and the one that I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes is named Santa Lucia. It's a good place for people to walk with the kids, etc., etc. But as this is a place that has a very strong history, because this is exactly the place where the Spanish decided the foundation of the city of Santiago many, many, many years ago. Today, it's a park, and there's a lot of trees in here. And as you can see, the architecture here is very European from the beginning of the 20th century. There's alleys like the one that you can see here, which is the place where the people live, and it's absolutely calm. But as I was saying before, the first floor, these people are turning into good restaurant where people can stop in here and have a coffee, a beer, or a glass of water, or of wine. I'm sorry. As you can see, some of the information that we have here has been done in English so that people can understand. And menus and those of the people who work in these places.
Jose, you have your finger over the camera a little bit. Can you move your finger off the camera?
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so here we have in front of us the Santa Lucia Hill, where the city was founded. And as you can see, some of the trees are blooming. There's a variety of trees in this place, so it's a very, very good place. By the way, this hill, which is a park, Santa Lucia, is closed at night. As you can see, there's a door in there, and it's all surrounded. So at night, nobody can go in. We have a lot of traffic here, as you can see, and the people is moving. This is very typical life in Santiago. As I said, this is a place that combines. We are practically in the limit between the downtown area, which is in front of us, and the rest of the areas and neighborhoods that we have within the city. There's sorry, people that don't want to be part of the video, of course. We have another little hotel, as you can see here, Foresta Hotel. And by the way, this tree here is a national tree of a country here at the other side of the mountains. And there you can see some palm trees, pepper trees, and the list goes on and on and on. So we are approaching now. We are heading to one of the photographs that were shown before. That is the Fine Arts Museum. As you can see there, another street, and the traffic. This is the view in front of us of the downtown area. Including inside of this downtown area, we have the civic center, where we have, the central bank and the presidential palace and the Congress, etc., etc. So there's a lot of activities here. As you can see there, that beautiful house that got converted into a very good restaurant, and have the information at the main entrance what you're going to get here. So it's a bar with burgers and pizzas. You see? And like this, at the other side of the we have more places So in Chile, we're fanatic for tea. So we have a very interesting collection of trees coming from around the globe. And of course, we have coffee, including the Turkish coffee. This is a very, how do I say, very useful institution that we have in our country that happens to be the fireman or the fire department. So here you have, it's all inside and clean. But we continue to move north towards the park, which is called the Forestal Park. And there we're going to have the chance to see from the outside the Fine Arts Museum, which is a beautiful building that was built during the 19th century, looking like those palaces in Europe, particularly in France. It was getting a little bit complicated here because we have too many cars. But this is a city that is closer to areas in Santiago that you're going to find a lot of fun. For instance, very closer to Santiago, we have the wine areas. We have a great variety of good wines in our country. And as you can see, the majority of the buildings have been built during the beginning of the 20th century. We're getting now to the Forestal Park, and you will see
We lost your connection, Jose. We can't
Yeah,
hear you and we can't see you.
Yeah, I think we've lost Jose, unfortunately. So it was nice to see a little bit of life on the street in Santiago there, but I think we might have to move on. So thank you very much, Jose. I am going to go back to the slideshow now. If you bear with me while I share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that. Yeah, excellent. So the next stop on our trip around Chile is Valparaiso. This is a colourful, historic port city overlooking the Pacific, about an hour and a half west of Santiago, so a very easy driving distance. And it can be visited on a day trip or indeed for a trip, a visit of several days, because there are some excellent hotels there, as I'll show you. So overlooking the Pacific, as you can see there, it has an incredibly prosperous past, and that makes it a very important city in Chile. It was at one point the main stop for all ships that were rounding the Horn to go to the Pacific ports of the United States. And so it became a very prosperous town. It's got one of the longest running Spanish language newspapers that's still running there, El Mercurio de Valparaiso, and it's got a number of excellent education institutions there, including a number of universities, which still gives it a sort of modern student buzz, if you like, and really keeps the city alive. What you find is on the hillsides, which overlook the city, you still find some of these wonderful old, very European style buildings, particularly houses, wonderful architecture, a fair amount of greenery, lots of lovely gardens, as you can see there, and so it's not uncommon to find a view of, say, a little flower garden or whatever, overlooking the city and out to the bay. Looking back up the city, you see a sort of riot of colour, complete sort of disorganised array of buildings in varying states of repair, all in different colours, and this is really what gives the city some of its character and charm. Along with that, as I said, it's a huge student centre. We've got a great student population, and along with that goes a vibrant arts scene, including a lot of street art that you'll see everywhere in many different styles, such as these. And what tends to happen is people paint on the sides of some of the less well looked after buildings, for example, just to colour things up and liven things up. As you can see here, the whole street has been coloured, this little pedestrian street with streamers and flags being hung between the buildings. And here they've even painted the stairs and the sidewalks as well. And along with this go a huge range of handicrafts and music. It's not uncommon to see bands or singers just playing on the streets, on the hillsides. And so it has a real sort of life and atmosphere that hopefully we'll be able to get a feeling of when we have a live report from Santiago shortly. There are a number of good hotels and restaurants there as well. This is an excellent restaurant, for example, that has a lovely patio where you can look out over the city, the hills, and to the bay further to the west as well. There are a variety of hotels, some of which have been converted from some of these grand old houses, such as the Palacio Astoreca, which is on a hillside. Again, a lovely patio here, as you can see, that overlooks the port, and interiors of sort of classical style that have really been modernized with furniture and interior decoration. And here's one of the better rooms that you can see on the bottom right. The Casa Higueras is a slightly more modern style house, but it is a house that's been converted into a hotel over a number of floors, and as you can see, it's got a number of it's got a swimming pool, for example, with a terrace, again overlooking the hills and the bay, and a wonderful salon here for relaxing. But we're going to go live now to Alvaro, who is our guide in Valparaiso, and he's going to show us a little bit of life on the street and what life is like in Valparaiso. Hello, Alvaro. Alvaro, come in. We have Alvaro, but we can't see or hear him. Are you connected, Alvaro?
You're having a little issue here, sorry.
Alvaro, can you show us your, switch on your video? Having a little trouble connecting to Alvaro for some reason.
Yeah, Alvaro said that he needs to provide access, but I can see you online, Alvaro, so we just need you to unmute and start your video. Yeah, maybe we should, Alvaro, if you disconnect and reconnect, maybe we will be able to see you.
Alvaro, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to switch on your video, your camera. You're not trying to share your screen. Alvaro is going to reconnect. Hopefully we'll be able to see him now.
Hello. Hello. There we are. Okay. Yeah, I have to log back in. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again, Nick. Hi, everyone. I'm live here from the city of Valparaiso, Chile, which is, as you were mentioning, one of the most amazing cities to visit in the country for various reasons. Right now, I'm in an area that is kind of lesser known. It's called Cerro Mariposas. It's not necessarily a tourist attraction, But that's what's great about Valparaiso. Valparaiso is one of those cities that you can literally go around, kind of walk around the city, and you'll run into these amazing buildings just kind of hidden everywhere. You don't have to stay in one specific area throughout your stay in Valparaiso. You could actually see a lot more just by wandering around, and it's a very safe city for you to do that. There are hotels all throughout the city, really beautiful restaurants. Actually, right behind me, I'm gonna switch the camera right in front of me. There's a little pizza place that they're opening up here in Cerro Mariposas with an amazing view. They're finishing the terrace now. There's a coffee place next to that. I'll tell you more about that on our way back. I'm gonna start walking down here, just this alleyway, like I said, a random alleyway in Valparaiso, not necessarily a tourist attraction, but the whole city is like this. Beautiful gardens, these old homes that have resisted many, many earthquakes throughout the years, which make it very sturdy. And that one of the reasons we have such amazing construction is actually because the German community came here in the turn of the century. Well, they started coming here in the 1820s and 1830s, but around turn of the century, the German community was quite broad here, and they brought a lot of their architecture. And yeah, the architecture here is just amazing. You have, like you said before, many old houses, you know, like these doors and art. You can see just little pieces of artworks everywhere. There's an amazing little door down there. I'm gonna hop down there. An amazing little door, just somebody's house, painted with a landscape of Valparaiso. The light posts, as you can see, also have art. So it's a very, very interesting city in that sense. Beautiful flowers, beautiful gardens. And like this, there are many areas throughout the city. This one is kind of well known because, I mean, amongst the locals, because there's an old funicular here. A funicular is, you know, the lift that goes up diagonally from the downtown area and brings you up to this area. But even though it's currently not working and they're planning to reopen it, still a really nice walk up. Look at this house here with the doors, kind of like a museum. See? So walking around the city is like a museum experience. Like you said before, Valparaiso is a city. Well, it was discovered in 1536, and for about 300 years, not much happened here. But in the 1800s, the British community came out here to help us get our freedom from Spain. So while they were doing that, many of them decided to stay and not go back to the UK. And they stayed here, and they have different areas. We have actual like British areas, Italian areas, French areas, Croatian areas. Valparaiso is divided into many of these areas. And well, the British community, they left around 1914 when the First World War started. And after that, there was a big immigration from Spain that came out here. Okay, so for example, look at this. You're walking just up a random street, and look at this. There's a funicular in between the houses. Very typical image of Valparaiso, with the clothes hanging right outside. That's, you know, no need for dryers in Valparaiso. It's a very windy city. And you can see the rails there. And it goes right between the houses to the upper station. There's a little tunnel on the side that some people will tell you that when they were younger, they'd walk through the tunnels and they'd appear a block up. You know, this is a very playful city. It's a city that doesn't have a specific design like most Spanish cities that they would make kind of like chessboards to build out. This is a city where people said, well, I like it here, and this is where I'm going to build my house. You look at houses and you say, okay, it's a one-story house. And then as you come close here and you look down, there's really a lot more than just one story. They go all the way down the hill. And everywhere you walk around here, you have these amazing views of the city. See, good access. Buses come right here. In fact, this right here is a bus stop. So buses will just stop right here. They'll leave you here and you can walk around Cerro Mariposas. Now, some people saw that this is an area that has a lot of potential And around, let's say like around 6 years ago, a New Zealand winemaker who was making very good wine called Casas del Bosque, he decided to make a container hotel in an area that he saw potential in, and that is right up here. That's their terrace. They have a wine bar at the top, then all the rooms below. The bottom part is a winery where they're making actual wine right here in that garage, like garage wine. They have a little restaurant. So yeah, very, very interesting place. See, and it's all made of containers. And then the view, when you look out, little art, and the view of Valparaiso. Now, Valparaiso is a World Heritage Site, not the entire city. Certain areas of the city are World Heritage. They were declared so in 2003. And this means that there are a lot of areas that are protected, so you can't put any just random buildings up anywhere. So, for example, the high rises, they're mostly down in the downtown area, away from the heritage area. There's some interesting artwork here. The name of this hotel is Wine Box. So they wanted to paint something that had to do with the wine industry. So they got two really famous local artists called Un Color Distinto, and they painted a couple, which is what they usually paint. And they're saying cheers with a glass of, I think it's Merlot, I'm not sure. And then across the hill, you have Bella Vista. Bella Vista is well known because it's where they had the first open air art museum where you could walk around and see different works. And at the very top of Bella Vista, there's another hill called Florida. And Florida Hill is home to Pablo Neruda's house. Now, if you don't know who Pablo Neruda is, he's a Nobel Prize winning poet, won the Nobel Prize in 1971. And he has three famous houses: La Chascona in Santiago, Isla Negra, south of Valparaiso, which was his vacation home. It's also his burial site. And right up here, La Sebastiana. And La Sebastiana was his party house. So him and all his artist friends of different types of art would go to the house and he'd prepare cocktails, and you can still visit that place. It's a museum. It's just a couple of blocks up from here. Now, these are up and coming areas where I am right now. These are areas where they're still building, you know, and this neighborhood is actually open to a lot of businesses. So a lot of new entrepreneurs are coming out here to this area, and they're starting to place new businesses around here. Now, what happens is once Un Color Distinto painted that graffiti art / wine piece, the wineries got together with this one collective, and they paid artists, street artists, to paint wine-related things. For example, this is by Viña Santa Carolina, and it says Live Heritage. See, very beautiful piece by an artist named Chilote, who comes from the area of Chiloé in southern Chile, and is living in Valparaiso for, I want to say, about 7 years now. You got to be prepared to climb steps. Valparaiso is a city that has its steps, but that's the wonder of it. You walk around, and every time you get up somewhere, you see these amazing houses. There's a lot of things that are part of the idiosyncrasy of the city. For example, the crazy wiring. Ooh, I don't know how they work that, but these guys have some special talent, I guess, at the electrical company. Driving around here can be a challenge to some, but it's a nice challenge. Everything's hilly. And yeah, a lot of these walls, I'm actually a graffiti artist or street artist, whatever you want to call it. And we're actually going to be painting this very, very soon. So I got a bunch of people together and we all decided to paint that whole wall back there. So yeah, I'm going to take you to a special place now, which is where I carry out my wine tastings as I'm a sommelier, and also cooking classes. I work with a chef. She cooks Chilean food, shows it to people who are visiting, and it's always a great experience. Also here, really nice terrace up there. Valparaiso has one of the biggest fireworks show for New Year's. So around New Year's, they say that over 2 million people come as tourists to Valparaiso. All right, I might be interrupted. Just give me 1 second. Just one second. If you have any questions. Going in, you can see old houses of Valparaiso, office space. And this is where we do our cooking classes. So, little wine area. Some nice wines from Chile. And these are the areas where we do our cooking. The whole house has an amazing panoramic view to the entire city. And of course, my favorite place is this terrace here. Yes, one very important thing to point out when I mentioned about painting the walls, all I had to do was talk to the neighbor that owned the place. Said, hey, listen, I noticed that the outside of your house is full of tags. And he goes, will you paint it? I said, okay, yeah, I guess. That's what I wanted to ask. He goes, yeah, thank you, please. Whatever's colorful, we'll love it. So that's all I had to do to get permission. If the police come by and they stop me, I say, well, I just knock on the door, the neighbor comes out, and he'll probably say, hey, no problem. You know, I gave him permission, which is how it usually happens here. So this really nice terrace here. You can see everything from one side of Valparaiso in a panoramic view, all the way to Viña del Mar, which is the city next to this, and then Concon, which is at the very end, where you have some really interesting sand dunes. And here, when you come to Valparaiso, I'll be waiting for you with a nice bottle of sparkling rosé or just simply some rosé. All right. Anything else you want me to add? Any questions?
No, that's amazing, Alvaro. Thank you. Really, just shows absolutely the character and the spirit of Valparaiso. As you said, it's not even a particularly touristy thing. This is just the heart and spirit of the city, and exactly what a person who visits might see and experience. And that is the joy of it. I particularly like seeing. I'm glad you showed and mentioned the ascensor. Something that I particularly love to do. I've been visiting Valparaiso for many years, is to ride up and down the hills in the ascensores. These incredibly rickety sort of constructions of metal and wood that will take you up the side of the hill, really quite steeply up the hill, and you go from the floor of the city where you're among the buildings, and then suddenly you rise above the roofs and you have this amazing vista. So unfortunately, many of them are not working anymore. I hope they manage to renovate them, so a few more work, but it's certainly worth looking out for any visitor to Valparaiso. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Amazing view there, as we can see, and definitely nice to see it on a sunny day as well. So thanks a lot, Alvaro. We'll hope to speak to you soon.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're going to move on now to our next destination. If I come back to the presentation and share my screen. The next destination on our trip around Chile is Santa Cruz and the broader wine region around it. We're talking here about an area that's just south of Santiago. Santa Cruz, the town, is about 3 hours south of Santiago, but really the wine region fills up a lot of the space between Santiago and there as well. Santa Cruz itself is the principal town of the wine region, but really what makes up the area is a series of valleys, from the Maipo Valley to the Casablanca, which is closer to the coast, and the Colchagua, which is the area that Santa Cruz is found. And here you find wonderful countryside, isolation, relaxation, but plenty of activities as well. As you can see here, wonderful picturesque rows of vines with the winery in the background. And a great number of activities as well, just walking through the vines, or it's possible to go cycling or even horse riding. Of course, one of the main reasons to visit the wine region is to taste the wines, and in any number of wineries you might be able to visit the cellars where the barrels are being kept and the wines being aged, perhaps taste a variety of different wines, as I did here at Viña Vic. And you can really appreciate here the diversity of different wines. Obviously, red wine is made quite commonly, but there are also a really wide variety of white wines, and finding more and more sparkling wines now as well. And rosé, of course, as Alvaro showed us. So there is a great variety there. For someone who wants to stay at a winery, you might go and stay for 2 or 3 nights, for example, and works very well as a getaway from the city, or at the end of a trip, for example, where you want to relax at the end of a busy itinerary. There are a variety of accommodation options, such as the Cruz Apalta, previously known as the Casa l'Apostol, and this has very luxurious and sophisticated private villas. It's part of the Relais Chateau network, so you're guaranteed to have an excellent standard of accommodation, service and food. Or something a little bit more simpler but still very characterful, such as the Tierra Viña, which is just on the outskirts of the town of Santa Cruz, as you can see here, set among the vines with a nice swimming pool and simple but characterful bedrooms and accommodation as well. So a very good option for anyone who wants to go and stay in the wine region. Moving further on then, down to Pucon, we're now leaving the central part of Chile, the temperate part, and we're going down into the slightly cooler areas. As you can see on the map here, we've done a bit of a hop further to the south. Pucon is quite a distance from Santiago, so that's not really a driving distance, and the way to get there would be to fly to the nearby city of Temuco, and then it's about an hour and a half's drive from Temuco to Pucon. Pucon is part of what we call the Lake District, and it's characterized by wonderful clear blue lakes surrounded by forests and mountains, and even snow-capped volcanoes as well, because as with pretty much the whole of Chile, we're within striking distance of the Andes still. The snow-capped Villarrica volcano being the most striking one in the surroundings of Pucon. And to visit this area, to go to the Lake District in Chile, this is really for outdoor activities and adventure lovers, as it were. So a huge amount of outdoor pursuits to do, excellent hiking trails, lots of different national parks. This is the Monkey Puzzle Tree Forest that's just north of Pucon, for example, excellent hiking there. You can go horse riding, that's me on the right hand side, about to set off on a day's horse trek, and this is the kind of scenery, sort of mountain scenery, that we were trekking through. So amazing, picturesque forests, snow-capped peaks in the distance, absolutely wonderful days riding. Walking, this is another trip that I did, so we went in a vehicle to this sort of quite bright meadow, as you can see here, lots of lovely sunshine, but what we were doing was hiking into a gorge to find a hidden waterfall. So we hiked down a steep slope to see this waterfall and got right up close to it, and as you can see with these people wearing the rain capes here, there was quite a lot of mist and spray coming off this very high waterfall. So very adventurous activities available as well for those that want them, but also much easier walking, and you know, sort of a couple of hours walks through the forests available as well. There's a huge variety around Pucon. There are some excellent hotels here as well. The Antumalal is a sort of Bauhaus style construction in wood and stone, set on an outcrop that overlooks the lake. Wonderful views from floor to ceiling windows. It was actually visited by the Queen on her tour around Chile in just after her coronation, I think in the late 50s, early 60s, and they still keep a portrait of her on the walls. It's just outside the town of Pucon itself, but is within walking distance, so it's easy access for people who want to visit the town. A little bit further away, driving distance, is the Vera Vera Lodge. This is more of a lodge surrounded by its own parkland, for example. Wonderful property with a river running through it. You can see here wonderful decking for sitting outside, relaxing, having a drink, for example. And they offer a wide variety of excursions as well, such as the horse riding that I showed before and the hiking. Moving further south again from Pucon down to Puerto Varas. This is really now the heart of what we would call the Lake District, so even further. And again, you've got wonderful lakes. The town itself is on the edge of a lake. You can see the Osorno volcano in the distance, for example, and there are a variety again of activities to do from here, such as walking or hiking in the local national parks, as you can see here, walking through forest beside lakes, and a number of day trips available. You can see this map here, not only the day trips that can be done to the Petroé Falls, which is here, but it also shows the full distance of a mountain and lake crossing that can be made over to Bariloche in Argentina. Of course, we're very close to the Argentine border here, and in a full day trip, you can go by bus up to the lake shore at Petroé, start taking the lake across the Andean the boat across the Andean lakes, taking a bus again over the top, crossing the border, and then taking a boat from Puerto Blest down into Bariloche itself. So a full day, really a wonderful excursion, but also functions as transport to take you through onto your trip into Argentina, if that's something that you'd like to consider. This is the kind of boat that you would be on, for example, and the kind of landscape that you're passing through. So a wonderful experience all round. We're going to change tack slightly now. We've moved south from the centre from Santiago. We're now going to travel right to the very north of the country, to the Atacama Desert, which you can see on the map here. We've travelled south from Santiago, but we're hopping up north again. The Atacama Desert, as you may be aware, is one of the driest deserts in the world. It's centered, or tourism there is centered around the town of San Pedro de Atacama, which is a small town, as we'll see in a moment, small one-story buildings, but with a number of excellent hotels and the perfect stopping point for taking day trips out into the desert. And as you can see here, one can even cross the border up into Bolivia or across into Argentina if one so wishes. But there's plenty to do in the Chilean side of the Atacama and the surroundings of San Pedro. And so here you see a little bit of the town centre itself. Wonderful sort of adobe brick houses, a lot of whitewashing, traditional church, Spanish style church, for example. But the main event really is getting out into the desert, these incredible landscapes, hiking along mountain ridges, for example. The walks that you would do out here would be relatively manageable. You're not expected to sort of trudge through the desert for hours on end. You'd be taken there in comfortable vehicles, but the main event is to be able to explore these landscapes and take pictures, particularly because there's an excellent quality of light here. You've got high altitude lagoons, for example, We are, of course, still on the edge of the mountains, so incredible mountains and even the odd flamingo, as you can see there out on the lakes. It's incredibly desolate desert landscape, but incredibly impressive as well. Some of the vegetation that you might see here, for example, cacti, small tufts of grass, and small lagoons as well. Not only do you have that wonderful landscape, but you have natural wonders like these that are known as the El Tatio geysers, which every morning at dawn shoot off 100-foot plumes of steam into the sky. There's geothermal activity right underneath it, and the change in temperature effectively that happens when the sun comes out at dawn makes these huge plumes of steam shoot up. It's quite an early start to get up there. Obviously, you need to leave the hotel before dawn to get there for dawn. So it generally means getting up at about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's a good hour or an hour and a half journey by road to get up here, but it's an incredible sight once you get up there. Also, the air is incredibly cold, being quite high at over 4,000 meters above sea level. So you want to be wrapped up nice and warm there, but it really is absolutely worthwhile to make the journey. You also find throughout the desert small villages or even just the remnants of settlements. This is, for example, a small village church that you'd find in the desert, and so it's also possible to experience the sort of Andean culture, if you like, that's traditional to Chile and Atacama. And in fact, in the town of San Pedro, there's an excellent small museum that shows some of the artifacts that have been found in the desert, remnants of tools, for example, and clothes, textiles, weavings, and wood carving that would have been made by people who were living in the desert for hundreds, if not thousands of years into the past. San Pedro is also known for its stargazing. It's got incredibly clear skies, one of the clearest, most clear skies in the whole world, in fact. And so for people who are interested in gazing at the stars or learning about astronomy, there are a variety of providers of astronomical tours, if you like, where you might look through these very big telescopes and either enjoy the view of the whole Milky Way, or some of these will even be able to zoom in and show you some of the planets if they're in the right position, like you've never been able to see them before. Other activities throughout the desert might be cycling, or you might stop halfway through a day trip and have a wonderful picnic overlooking the lagoons and the mountains. There is wildlife in the desert as well, both kept llamas and alpacas and vicuñas, which are wild out on the desert. Also the flamingos that I mentioned before, which congregate around these high altitude lagoons. There are some excellent hotels and lodges in and around San Pedro. The Alto Atacama Lodge is one of my preferred favorites. I've stayed there and had a very enjoyable visit. Not only do they have a very high standard of accommodation, very comfortable accommodation, the food there, which is all included, was excellent, and the excursions as well, which were all included in your package stay. The Altiplanico Hotel, also on the edge of San Pedro, is a nice, characterful, slightly simpler affair with this traditional stone and adobe construction, set in wonderful gardens with a swimming pool as well, and you can see the exterior here, the wonderful views you've got to the volcanoes and the mountains in the distance. We're going to hear now from Paula, who is our guide in San Pedro, and she's going to show us a little bit of downtown San Pedro and what life is like there and what you can expect to see. Hello, Paula.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hello.
Okay, so hello everybody. Hello Southbound and Veloso Tours. I am here in the town of San Pedro de Atacama at the main street. It's a very sunny day, like the whole year. We have 300 years in sunny days and around 60 with clouds. But here you can see that people can can rest a little bit to take a nice cream And so you have the town of San Pedro. The characteristic it is that was made with adobe. So you can see here the adobe construction. That is the principal material of the historic center. That it's colonial Spanish architecture. The houses are painted in white or mud color by obligation. The advertisement oh, it's a baby here. The advertisement must be made it with wood. And in the main street, you have the principal restaurants, you have the art craft shops with Andean textiles. And the characteristic of the Caracoles street, that is the main street, it's that it's just one level floor, no two levels, just one. And now the restaurants are taking place outdoors at the same street as you see here now. And so now is the rhythm of the town, that it is very active now. You can see the shops all opened. They are working very well. Now it is close to lunchtime. For that reason, you have some shops that are closed. But in general, it is the principal area in the town, the typical area. So we're gonna take a look a little bit here in this shop. So you have some petroglyphs art design in the clothing and some sculptures like souvenirs, beautiful. And so you have Andean textiles coming from the Tiahuanaco culture or the Inca culture, like this. So because the influence of the Atacamanian people, that is the original people here, they had influence of Inca, first with Tiahuanaco people and then from the Inca people. And then came the Spanish people in 1540. So as you see here, the people are taking their food outdoors. So you have a very special place that is called Mercado Blanco, that with a lot of art craft, jewelries made it here in San Pedro. So now we're gonna take a look a little bit here. This is a very, very nice place. So you have the people working here at the same place. So you can see the jewelries. Hello. And so all these works are made here by the artisans, people. So you have Andean textiles too. So this is a very nice place. And San Pedro de Atacama works the whole year, even in winter. The temperature now, it's around 24 Celsius degrees. On summertime, we can get around 30, 32. And the minimum in summertime, it's around 10. And on winter, it's a little bit colder, but nothing that you can't support. So, but really, really San Pedro de Atacama works the whole year. And that is fantastic because we have the different activities working, like the bicycle. We have even sandboarding in the sand dunes of the Mars Valley. I came back to Caracoles Street now, so you can see some beautiful shops, especially for women, and some restaurants. So, and some shops, if you forgot to clothing or some special things for your trip, so you have everything here that you can obtain. The restaurants are open. Here we have a famous restaurant that is called Adobe restaurant, because it's a traditional Spanish colonial house. And by night they light fire at the center. It is very nice. And something that it's an obligation to downtown, it is that the windows and door must be painted in blue, black, brown, or made it with wood. No other colors, so no neon lights, no other kind of decorations. So because it's to conserve the colonial style. So now we are at the corner. We are at the corner, very famous, that it's Tocopilla with Caracoles Street. Oh, we have a group there. Young people, it is one of the most visitors that we have here, backpackers, but the adults, like people that is interested in the archaeology, geology, and the astronomy, are people that it's another kind of the target that you have in the town. So now we are at 2,400 meters above sea level. We are around 300 kilometers from the coast, and we are in the driest place of the world. At the northern area of the Salar de Atacama, we are inside of the basin of the Atacama Salt Flat. We are around 100 kilometers from the airport in Calama, so that is the best and shortest way to get here. But you can get from Argentina or from the Bolivian borders. So San Pedro, it's an oasis. It's an oasis in the middle of the desert in the region of Antofagasta. And we are surrounded by volcanoes, by the Andean mountain range by the east, and from the Domeyko mountain range by the west. So really, the Atacamanian people are very incredible people, because they domesticated the driest place of the world just to live here and create this beautiful town with many culture. And something that you can visit here, it's our very famous archaeological sites, like the Aldea de Tulor, the Tulor village. That was the first settlement from the Atacamanian people around 2,500 years ago. And Pucará de Quito, that is an Atacamanian fortress that was built in the Inca time for the invaders. So those are very incredible places to visit in the archaeological tour. And the water gets here by the rain that falls and the snow that falls at the top of the volcanoes. And then the water, it's infiltrated inside and then runs underground and finish here at the Atacama Salt Flat. And for that reason, we can survive in this very dry place. So now I am in the Toconao Street. So to the right side, you have the exchange houses. Many places, you have different places to choose. And now I am going to the square, the main square. And I would like to show you, this is an irrigation channel. This is the way to distribute the water in San Pedro de Atacama. So every 20 days, you can get water in your land to water the forest or the crops, crops of corn, alfalfa, and broad bean, principally here at this level. So, and for that reason, because we have water, and the reason that because we have water here, you can visit the principal lagoons that are in the Atacama Salt Flat, like Sehar Lagoon, very salty, that it's a very incredible experience, a nice experience that you can float like cork. And then you can visit after that the Ojos del Salar, that they are like looking the sky, and the two round lagoons. And at the end, you can have the Tevenquiche Lagoon, that is a sanctuary of nature. Sanctuary of nature that was declared recently, around 2 years ago, because you have the oldest kind of life in our planet, the stromatolites with the cyanobacteria. The National Reserve of Flamingos, it is the protected area, including Munbali. That Munbali, it is one of the most famous places to visit here in San Pedro, to experience the geology of this area. You can see the origin of the Salt Mountain Range. You can see the minerals of gypsum and salt. You can see at the sunset moment, the shadows, the contrast, the colors, and really, Munbali, until today, it is one of the most visited places now in San Pedro. But if you go a little further away, around 100 kilometers northeast, you can visit the Tatio geysers. And the geothermic field El Tatio, it's very special because it is the highest of the planet, for one, and the other, it is the largest of southern hemisphere. So, and it's an area with eruption of boiling water at 4,300 meters. So you need to go at the sunrise time, that is the coldest moment, and the water vapor, it is very high, sometimes get 10 meters, very, very, very tall. And so now I am at the square, as you see, with many trees. They are around 100 years old. And the other place to visit in San Pedro, it is the stargazing tour, as you said before. that you have now the astronomical traditional tour with like a lecture of astronomy to watch by the telescopes, and but now you have other kinds of astronomic tours, including the cosmic vision of the Atacamanian people, the traditional way to watch the sky. And recently now you have the astronomical photographs, the astrophotographic tours. So, and then you can,
Paula,
yes?
we've lost your image. Okay, well, I think that was the end. We've come to the main square, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you thanks a lot. It was wonderful to see. I love the idea of the planetarium, this astrological tour, which is equivalent to, it's a night trip where you lie down in these beds and then look at the sky, and someone with a laser pointer explains the night sky. It's similar to a natural planetarium. So that was very exciting. And I was also very happy to see these fire pits. It's also a very nice experience when I was there. I loved in the evening to be there, fire outside. They provide the blankets, a warm drink, and you look at the sky with the light from the fire. So that was wonderful to see San Pedro de Atacama and this architecture of the desert. Now, as a complete contrast, we are going right down to the south to the area of the Torres del Paine National Park. As you can see here we've moved to illustrate the range of landscapes and the range of latitudes. As I mentioned, Chile is, let's say, Norway to the Sahara, and here, right in the far south, we have the Torres del Paine National Park. We have this map, which we have produced to help plan a trip. So you have actually here the number of hours it takes to walk these different regions, so that you can plan in advance some long days, some shorter days, and then followed by some long days. So we're going to see pictures of this whole area, and you will see that even here there's quite a very significant contrast between different regions, Laguna Amarga from the Gray Glacier. And the main purpose here, the one thing you cannot tell, and I want to highlight is very important, is the gradient. So while, say, 2 hours walking or 5-hour walking may be a bit intimidating, if it's level, you do it at your own pace, it's not that difficult. What I found was a bit harder and that required some preparation is when you're walking uphill. So if you take here at the top, the Ascension Valley, you have 2 hours walking fairly flat. Then you have another hour walking within the valley, which is also fairly flat and easy. But then you have 1 hour walking uphill to this base of the towers, which we're going to see some pictures. And this hour walking uphill through this rock fall is harder. So what we normally suggest when you plan a trip to Torres del Paine is to plan for one long day, followed by a shorter day of walks, or maybe minimal walking, just moving from one side of the park to another, looking at the landscape, and then another day of long walks. And when I say long walks, I mean maybe 9-10 hours, which in some cases can be quite hard. But when you think that this area is the same latitude south as London is north, it means that if you go to this area, let's say between November and March, you have very long days from, say, on the 21st of December, which is the longest day, it would be from say 4 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. So you have a long time to spend outdoors. So it allows you to plan for what you would like to do. You can have shorter walks. This is the area of Laguna Amarga, which is sort of pretty scenic. You're not going into the towers up there, which we're going to see in a minute, but you can have more of a scenic view from a distance, which is still very interesting, of course. This is the kind of landscape. This is a picture I took of the puma last time I was in Torres del Paine. I think the guide that we're going to speak with is going to vouch for how well the wildlife is doing in Torres del Paine. As you can see here, lots of birds and guanacos, and also lots of puma. And this was right by the roadside. This puma didn't even want to look at the vehicle where I was passing. She was just focused on some guanacos and beginning to stalk them. So the area is wonderful. This is, I must point out that this was around sort of April, March, April. And the wildlife is more free and comes down near the road more between this time of March through the winter and on to October. I think in the busier period of January, February and December, they don't come so close to this area where the treks are, because there are more people. And these are some of the activities. You have these well-defined trails. As you can see, you don't need any sort of very special foot other than light trekking boots. You can go horse riding, you have some picnics, and it's a wonderful experience there to be outdoors in this scenery. This is the kind of trails that you have, and the scenery here at the foothill of the Cuernos. Wonderful experience. I really enjoyed Torres del Paine for the variety. As you can see, some of it is here with the glacier. This is the Gray Glacier and landscape. I took this picture here on the left, which we have in the back of our brochure, which is near Laguna Amarga. This is a friend of mine who we were with in Torres del Paine. So it's a wonderful experience to be here. It's a couple taking a selfie there with that scenery. And this is my colleague Jenny, who went and climbed. Remember, I mentioned the Cuernos, these 1 hour trek uphill through these boulders. And at the top, you are rewarded with this landscape, the lagoon and these high peaks. And Jenny was very brave and strong. She did what's called the W trek between the Ascension Valley, the Valley del Frances, and the Gray Glacier. So this is a variety of experiences. This is another view of this rock fall that you walk up for 1 hour before you get to the Cuernos. So wonderful place for trekking. And this is the picture that I particularly like, because it does show you the scale, where you have two people here at the base, and then you have surrounded by these magnificent landscape around. This is a very good illustration of the view, and that's the reward when you climb up. And if you have more or less, it's going to be a 9 hour, 10 hour day, of which 1 hour is uphill and the rest is fairly easy. So if you pace yourself and you are prepared for it, then it's relatively easy when there's no rush and you have a very long day ahead. So this is, that view is here, Glacier Torres, Las Torres, and that's the 1 hour walk that I gave as an example. But this is the kind of scenery, Laguna Amarga. And now to look at the Gray Glacier here, there's a boat trip along the lake to the base of the Gray Glacier. And we're going to look at that as an illustration here. So this is a completely different perspective, all within a relatively small area of the national park. You take a boat trip and you go to this glacier, and that's also a picture that I took last time I was in Torres del Paine. And this was a Brazilian couple, by the way. Actually, that's quite interesting because Brazil doesn't have snow and doesn't have mountains. So the Brazilians would like very much to come to Chile and, in fact, to Argentina to see a different type of landscape. Another experience interesting in Torres del Paine is this igloo sort of rooms, which have a walkway, a wooden walkway, and then they have some communal area for restaurants and viewing. And this is a very close experience to the environment. You want to be close to the environment. This is the refugios. Jenny took this picture, and they have warm meals, warm showers, wholesome stews at the end of a long day's walk, soup, and you can have a warm shower. And but in the refugios, you sleep in communal bunk beds. So there's a wide variety, as you can see here. This is a high category, top category hotel, right in the center with the view. And the rooms, as you can see here, that have an amazing view over to the towers and the Torres del Paine. This is another example of Las Torres, very comfortable rooms, so that once you've done your long walks or short walks or sightseeing, then you come back to the hotel, have a good night's sleep, a wholesome meal, and you're ready for more the next day. Now, our main guides in Torres del Paine are Manuel and Nicholas. So I would like to ask them to tell us and show us Torres del Paine now. Are you there, Manuel? Hello.
Hey there, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well. Carry on.
Hi, thank you for the pass. Well, as you can see, Manuel here from Las Torres. Today in a very windy day. Okay, here from the mighty Patagonia. As you can see behind me, Patagonia is showing off a little bit. So I'm expecting wind gusts up to 120 kilometers per hour today. So I'm gonna step inside. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit more. Here in the back, you can see the domes of Frances, which are in the foothill of the massif of Cuernos, specifically the main Cuernos. So I'm just gonna step inside before I just fly away with the wind gusts, okay? Just give me 1 sec. Oh, perfect. So, well, now here in the shelter of the refugio, which, as you told us, well, domes are like shared bedrooms, like a hostel type kind of thing, with a private bathroom and a stove where you can just, you know, get and chill after a long walk day. Here in the Patagonia, I've been working like for 4 seasons now. I'm a huge fan of nature and adventure lover. And I do really love, you take me there? Yeah, I do really love to be immersed in the wilderness and in the middle of the mountain. Speaking of which, we think that right now, we know that we've been through a really rough time with the pandemic, and we think that nature is at its best. Why is that? Because wilderness had the opportunity like to reflourish, you know, the flora and fauna are exuberant, which give the visitor the opportunity to come and experience a very unique and probably not repeated opportunity to live this experience. We here at the French Hot Mountain Hostel, which I'm the manager of, sorry, I didn't tell you that before. We have key attractions that we might mention, like the Lake Northern's Hall, which was at my back when I was outside. We are between the French Valley, which is at the foot of the massive of Paine Grande, which is a very impressive mountain range, which is just 30 minutes away from the entrance here, from the hostel to the valley. Okay, this season we've been working since September, approximately the 12th of September. And well, we've been working through a lot of protocols and procedures to, get the tourism business going on again. It's going on slowly, which gave us the opportunity to work on the conservation aspects of the park, the trail maintenance, and of course, it's very important to mention that we've been working on the health and security protocols to prevent the COVID-19 and give the visitors a very safe experience here in the Torres del Paine National Park. Well, as you said before as well, some sightings of the wilderness, specifically the flora and fauna. In my personal experience, and I think that's something that's very possible during this time, because the park, it's not as busy as usual. It's very, let's say, chilling. So you can get to see you get to see the sightings of a puma, the guanacos, or the condors while you are trekking through the W circuit. Okay, so you might experience the freshness of the air, the mountain stream water. So it's a very, very unique place to come and have a little time for yourself and experience wilderness at its best. So that's basically what we do here in the W circuit. At the French Mountain Hostel, we do have the camping site as well, the domes, and we do offer the restaurant and bar services where you can get your meals, your dinners, your breakfast, and box lunches to go as well. And I think it's a pretty much interesting experience, but it's a roughly adventure experience that everyone should live. Remember that Torres del Paine, it's considered to be the 8th wonder, natural wonder, sorry, of the world. So it's a must on your bucket list, I think. You get me there? Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, we could hear. We could hear that.
Perfect.
It was very
I think
nice.
I lost the connection a little bit.
No, we had the connection all the time. So thank you. It's interesting that you mentioned the wind, because I know that from my experience, the weather there is not that bad. There isn't, for walking, cold is good because it cools you down, and there isn't so much sort of rain or snow. But the main thing is that it can be very windy. And, you need to be well protected for the wind and any time of the year, even in the summer.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, Torres del Paine is famous because you can experience 4 seasons in one day, they say. I mean, it can be sunny, it can be rainy, it can be snowy as well. And well, wind, I think it's part of the Patagonian stamp, it's
I know.
Patagonia, yeah.
On the drive from Punta Arenas to Torres del Paine, you see those short trees that are leaning towards one way because of the predominant wind pushing the trees. So it's very common to see the trees all leaning one way.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much. See you again. I'm glad you are ready, and we look forward to coming to Torres del Paine again.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
All right. All the best. Thank you. So now we are going to move on here. And from here, we'd like to mention that Chile, with its very long coastline and its amazing landscapes, also has some wonderful cruises, relatively short cruises, sort of 4 nights, 3 nights, 5 nights, which are a wonderful way to incorporate into a trip, possibly for you to consider, because it's a wonderful way to see the landscape where the land is close to the water, the ship. So it's not the same as being out in the ocean surrounded by water. You actually have a lot of things to see around you. And no packing, no unpacking, and you go ashore for a shore during the day on excursions and come back to the ship. And we're going to see some of these wonderful landscapes that you can, and quality of boats that are available here. So this is one example of the Chonos route on the Scorpius 1. So you have a variety here, as we can see, is a bit further north. So they have temperature areas, hot water springs, there's a glacier at the end, and the fjords. So more kind of varied in terms of climate and landscapes, more trees than the ones further south. But this is a wonderful cruise company of Greek origins. The family who own it are very much into boats, and they have a long experience of boats, running ships. And this is one of the trips that I really recommend in Chile to see the landscape, because some of these areas are inaccessible. So this is the variety of things you actually see on the cruise, some remote communities, areas with wildlife, some areas that are not accessible from land. And this is cabins are comfortable, the food is wonderful, and the ship goes right up to the glaciers in San Rafael Lagoon. As you can see, lots of wildlife around. And then going further south, in this area here from Torres del Paine and Puerto Natales, you have another cruise. This one is more arid. I think here you don't have so many trees, because as we're going further south, as you can see, there's more glaciers, more arid landscape. And then right down in the south, you have this other one, the Scorpius, which I've been on recently before COVID, and that was a wonderful trip. It actually joins between Argentina and Chile, and is a wonderful way to travel between the two. And this area of Tierra del Fuego here in the south is totally inaccessible from land, and it takes you right down to Cape Horn, the southernmost tip of South America. Next stop would be Antarctica. So this is the ship with excellent cuisine as well, very comfortable cabins, wonderful guides, and wonderful ships. They were built in Chile, in fact. And you can see every day you go ashore, come back to the ship. This is some of the vegetation, the landscapes. This is actually a picture I took. I'm smiling because it's very rare for Cape Horn to be so calm and sunny. It's like unbelievable. In the morning when we arrived, it was turbulent, dark sky, the sea was moving, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to land. And then it calmed down. This was sort of mid-morning. Sun came out. So this is another kind of landscape, and also on this cruise, and everyone getting on the Pangas to go back to the ship, as you can see here in the bottom right, and getting right up close to the penguins. So this was a wonderful trip that I thoroughly recommend. These glaciers, they call it Glacier Alley on Beagle Channel. This glacier is particularly interesting for me, I found, because the glacier is on top of the mountain, and then there's this cascade of water coming down to the sea from under the glacier. So a wonderful trip. And now, to put all these together, all these different regions, if I could ask Nick to illustrate some of these itineraries where you can build to put it all together. Nick,
Yes,
what itineraries do you
thanks,
suggest?
Paolo. That concludes our overview of Chile and all the great variety of different experiences and landscapes that one can see there. We have a variety of different itineraries on offer that work as really a starting point for planning your trip around Chile. If I can, hopefully I can just take control of the slideshow and that should work. There we go. So our Sereno tour is our sort of overview of Chile in about 2 weeks, 13 nights, starting in Santiago, as we saw earlier, going down through the Lake District to Torres del Paine, which Paolo has just been speaking about, and then all the way back up again to the Atacama, and then back to Santiago. You see here that you would spend some nights in Santiago in between as well, and before flying home at the end of it. That's part of the how to get around in Chile. One does have to come and go from Santiago often several times. We have the Villarrica tour, which is a little bit more focused in its coverage. Starting in Santiago, we will pick up a car and do a self-drive itinerary, going to Valparaiso, down to Santa Cruz, and then, as I said earlier, it's quite a distance from Santa Cruz to Pucon, and so you would spend a night in Chillán on the way, so as to break up the very long journey and make a little bit more of a leisurely itinerary. But then continuing from Pucon, 3 nights there with plenty of time to do activities, down to Puerto Varas, and then you would fly from Puerto Varas back through Santiago to connect to go home again. And that's 12 nights. Our Azul tour is again slightly different, starting in Santiago, going up to the Atacama Desert, coming back down and spending several nights in Valparaiso, and then connecting up with one of the excellent cruises that sets off from the Lake District, which Paolo just mentioned, setting off from Puerto Varas to see the fjords and islands of southern Chile, and then coming back and spending one final night in Santiago. Our Magellan tour combines Argentina with Chile, and it does so in quite an inventive way. Starting in Buenos Aires, you would fly over to Bariloche in the Argentine Lake District, and from there take the full day Andean Lakes crossing, which I mentioned, a wonderful full day trip through the mountains and across the lakes to Puerto Varas, then down to Torres del Paine, the wonderful national park, and taking one of the Patagonia cruises around the fjords and channels of the very south of Chile, finishing in Ushuaia, which is in Argentina, and from there you can fly back to Buenos Aires, where you spend a final night, and from there home. So in about 2 weeks, just 15 nights, you can see the breadth of Chilean and Argentine Patagonia, including the fjords and channels of Tierra del Fuego. On the other hand, the Yamana tour, it makes more of a U-shape, so starting in Buenos Aires and going down through Argentina to Calafate, taking a journey across to Torres del Paine and the Andean Lake region, crossing over into Chile, and then coming up and finishing in Santiago, and that's approximately 17 nights. And there are a variety of different options and alternatives that you can take there to tailor your trip as well. As I said, these are just suggestions for itineraries, and we can of course tailor everything to your preferences. We have on the website a very useful tool for planning your trip, in that on any of our tour pages, as you see here, you can select your preferred departure date from the calendar tool by clicking on your preferred date, and then pressing this button here, download itinerary, will automatically download a PDF copy of this itinerary with pictures and maps and showing exactly what you're going to be doing and seeing on each day, an itinerary overview, and a guideline price as well. And this can help you just to plan where you're going to be on each day, how long you're going to spend in each place, and exactly what's going to be included from our suggested tour itineraries. But then if you would like a guaranteed price, or to tailor the tour to your own tastes and preferences in any way, you can contact us and we can provide you with a bespoke proposal with a guaranteed price, so that you know exactly what you're going to get and how much you're going to spend on your personalized trip. But we found this tour PDF generator to be very useful in the early stages of people who want to plan their trips to South America. So that concludes our webinar. Thank you very much to all of the guides who have we've been able to contact remotely and see what local life is like and life on the ground in Chile. Does anyone have any questions before we end the webinar? Berenice, did we have any questions in the...
So far from the chat box, I haven't received any question. But if you have any question, please feel free to give us a call. You've got our phone number here on that slide, and our email as well. And we will be happy to reply to any question or help you building your next trip to Chile.
Exactly. Yes, do contact us at any time and we can help you plan your next trip. We hope to speak to you and help you start planning soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.